This is video 11 of the MBTI series, and today we are talking about ENFJ, also called the Protagonist. And just like every video in this series, I want to say up front that a personality type does not make someone a good or bad person. How people behave depends on their mental health, their stress levels, their hormones, their life experiences, and who they are dealing with at any given time. The type is just a framework for understanding tendencies, not a final judgment on anyone. Now, this one is personal to me in a specific way. I am an INFJ, and ENFJ shares 3 of my 4 letters. We are both N, F, and J. That means we are both intuitive, both feeling types, and both judging types. The only difference on paper is the I versus the E, introversion versus extroversion. But that one letter creates a pretty significant difference in how we show up in the world, and I will explain that as we go. Let me tell you about ENFJ. The letters break down like this. The E is for extroversion. The N is for intuition. The F is for feeling. And the J is for judging. So this is an extroverted, intuitive, feeling, judging type. And the name Protagonist fits this type extremely well because these are people who are naturally drawn to leading, inspiring, and bringing others along with them. Not through force or authority, but through genuine warmth, vision, and the ability to make people feel like they matter. ENFJs are often described as natural-born leaders, and unlike some types where that description feels like a stretch, with this type it genuinely fits. They have a way of seeing what people need, reading the emotional temperature of a room, and responding in a way that moves everyone forward together. They are not leading from the front barking orders. They are leading from the heart, pulling people along because those people genuinely want to follow. Let me get into the main traits now. The first and most defining trait is their warmth. ENFJs are genuinely warm people. Not in a performed, surface-level way, but in a way that comes from actually caring about others. They want the people around them to be okay. They want to help. They want to contribute to something that makes a real difference in someone's life. This is not a role they put on for social situations. It is how they are actually wired. The second trait is their emotional intelligence. These are people who can read a room with remarkable accuracy. They pick up on how others are feeling almost immediately, sometimes before the other person has consciously registered it themselves. They know when someone is off, when there is tension between two people, when someone needs to be checked on. And they respond to those signals with genuine attentiveness. The third trait is their ability to communicate in a way that reaches people. ENFJs are often naturally good speakers, whether in formal settings or one-on-one conversations. They know how to frame things so that the other person can hear them. They know how to motivate without being pushy, how to encourage without being fake, how to address something difficult without making the other person feel attacked. This is a real skill, and not everyone has it. The fourth trait is their strong sense of purpose. ENFJs are not just drifting through life. They have a vision for how things should be, what kind of impact they want to have, and what kind of world they want to contribute to. They are drawn to work and relationships that feel meaningful, and they struggle to stay invested in anything that feels pointless or shallow. What are their real strengths? Their ability to bring people together is probably the biggest one. In any group, whether a team, a family, a community, or a friendship circle, the ENFJ is often the one holding things together. They manage relationships, they smooth over tensions, they make sure everyone feels included, and they do this almost automatically. Groups function better when someone like this is in them. Their empathy is another genuine strength. They do not just understand other people intellectually, they feel with them. This makes them incredibly supportive in difficult times and genuinely good at helping people through things. They are the friend you call when something goes wrong because they will actually show up emotionally and practically. Their vision and idealism are also real strengths in the right context. They can see what something could be, not just what it is right now, and they can inspire others to work toward that vision. In leadership roles, in creative projects, in any context where you need someone to articulate a compelling direction and get people moving toward it, this type excels. And their commitment to the people they care about is deep and consistent. When an ENFJ decides you matter to them, you will feel it. They show up. They remember things. They invest. The relationships they build tend to be strong ones because they put real effort into maintaining them. Now the weaknesses, because this type has some significant ones. One of the biggest issues is their tendency to neglect their own needs. Because they are so focused on other people, so attuned to what everyone else needs, they often forget to check in with themselves. They give and give and give, and by the time they realize they are running on empty, they are usually already past the point where a short rest would have fixed things. This pattern over time leads to burnout that can be both physical and emotional. Their difficulty with conflict is another real weakness. Even though they are excellent at helping other people navigate difficult conversations, when the conflict involves them personally, they can struggle. They care deeply about relationships, and the fear of damaging a connection can make them avoid addressing things that genuinely need to be addressed. This means that problems sometimes get swept under the rug in the name of keeping the peace, and those problems do not actually go away. They can also be quite sensitive to criticism. Their identity is so tied to being helpful, being good, being a positive presence in people's lives, that feedback which challenges that self-image can hit harder than they let on. They often seem confident and capable on the outside, so people do not always realize how much a critical comment has affected them. And they can sometimes become overly involved in other people's problems to the point where they blur the line between supporting someone and trying to manage their life for them. They see what someone needs, they see the solution, and they want to help so much that they can end up being directive in a way the other person did not ask for. How do they make friends? ENFJs make friends fairly easily. They are warm, they are engaging, and they are genuinely interested in other people, which is an attractive combination in any social setting. They have a way of making the person they're talking to feel like the most important person in the room, and that feeling makes people want to come back. They tend to build friendships that are substantive rather than just casual. They're not interested in surface-level relationships that never go anywhere deeper. They want to actually know the people in their life, and they invest accordingly. They also tend to attract people who need support because they are so clearly capable of providing it. This can be beautiful, but it can also become draining if the relationships become one-sided over time. How do they behave in relationships? In romantic relationships, ENFJs are devoted, attentive, and genuinely invested in their partner's happiness. They are thoughtful and expressive, and they make the people they love feel seen and valued in a consistent way. They are the partner who remembers what you said 6 months ago and shows up with something that reflects it. That kind of attentiveness is rare, and it is real. The challenge is that they need a partner who can reciprocate that care without being intimidated by the depth of it. They can sometimes project onto their partner what they think the partner needs, rather than asking what the partner actually wants. And because they are so good at reading people, they can sometimes assume they already know what someone is thinking or feeling without checking. They also need their partner to be honest with them, even about the hard things. An ENFJ who is surrounded by people who only tell them what they want to hear ends up losing touch with real feedback, and that is not good for their growth. How do they handle conflict? This is complicated. On one hand, they are incredibly skilled at mediating conflict between other people. They can see all sides, they can communicate with care, and they can find a path that works for everyone. On the other hand, when they are personally involved in the conflict, they can become avoidant or overly accommodating because they want to preserve the relationship at almost any cost. When they do address conflict directly, they usually do it with a lot of care and intention. They think about how to say things in a way that the other person can receive. They try to lead with understanding. But they also feel the tension very acutely, and they can come away from even a well-handled conflict feeling emotionally drained in a way that takes time to recover from. What types get along well with ENFJs? Types that are appreciative of warmth, depth, and genuine investment in the relationship tend to do well. INFPs often connect naturally with ENFJs because they share the feeling and intuitive preferences and can engage with the depth that this type brings. INFJs, which is my type, often connect well too, for the same reason. Types that are practical, present-focused, and emotionally reserved can sometimes struggle with the intensity of an ENFJ's investment. Not because anything is wrong, but because the gap between how much emotional energy the ENFJ brings and what the other type is comfortable receiving can create friction over time. What types find them the most draining? Very independent types who do not want to feel like someone is closely monitoring their emotional state can find the attentiveness of an ENFJ a bit much. Types that are very direct and not naturally warm can also clash with the ENFJ's communication style, which is always trying to soften and consider the emotional impact of every interaction. Now, from my perspective as an INFJ, and again, this is just additional context, there's a lot I genuinely relate to and appreciate about this type. The shared N, F, and J means we are operating from a very similar internal framework. We both think in patterns and meaning. We both make decisions through values and human impact. We both prefer closure and direction over open-ended ambiguity. When I talk to an ENFJ, it often feels like speaking a very similar language, and that is comfortable in a way that not every type offers. I also appreciate their warmth and their genuine care for people. It is not performed. You can feel the difference between someone who is going through the motions of being warm and someone who actually means it, and with ENFJs, they usually mean it. What I sometimes find harder is the extroversion. As an INFJ, I need quiet. I need space. I need to withdraw and process, and I need the people around me to be okay with that. An ENFJ who processes by talking, who wants to discuss and connect, and engage even when I am already at capacity, can feel like too much for me. Not because they are doing anything wrong, just because our recharging needs are different in a way that requires real communication to navigate. I also occasionally notice that ENFJs can become so focused on managing everyone else's experience that they lose track of what they personally think and feel separate from all of that. And as a type that values authenticity and depth, I find it more interesting when someone is real with me about their own inner world rather than constantly managing mine. How can ENFJs grow? Learning to prioritize their own needs without guilt is probably the most important thing. They are allowed to rest. They are allowed to say no. They are allowed to exist without being in service to someone at every moment. Building that belief and acting on it changes the trajectory of their long-term health and happiness significantly. Getting more comfortable with real conflict, the kind that involves them personally and that needs to be addressed rather than smoothed over, is also important. Not every disagreement needs to be handled with perfect delicacy. Sometimes the most caring thing is to be direct, even if it creates temporary discomfort. And checking in with their own inner world regularly, separate from everyone else's needs and feelings, helps them stay connected to who they are underneath all the giving. ENFJs are some of the most genuinely good-hearted people you will meet. They care deeply, they show up consistently, and they have a way of making the world feel a little more human. The challenge is making sure that same care extends inward as well. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you something. If you are an ENFJ, what is the part of this type that people most often misunderstand about you? Or, if you have an ENFJ in your life, what is your experience actually like? Drop it in the comments. I would genuinely love to hear your stories. Thanks for watching. If this video resonated with you, please consider hitting the subscribe button. I am currently working toward my goal of 1,000 subscribers so I can finally monetize this channel and turn this passion into a sustainable part of my future. This is my unfiltered diary of solo living in the Philippines, and your support helps me keep this channel growing. If you would like to help out even more, you can check out the Buy a Treat for My Pets link in the description. My dogs definitely appreciate the love. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss the next update. Thank you for being such an important part of this journey. I will see you in the next one.